Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia, and this is the Frontline Changes Report for the past 48 hours for 2 days, 1007 and 1008 for the 26th to the 27th of November. So a lot of frontline changes because it's 48 hours, and I'll start off with the Kursk front first, and then we'll walk along the front line in the clockwise direction. So yeah, my tongue a bit slow motion today. So over at the Kursk front at the western flank, I did mention this in the Kursk front quick update. Russian forces has been geolocated on the outskirts of Nizhny Klin, and this actually leads me to draw the front line in this way and make a judgment call to because of the lack of reporting from Totilok and Pokrovsk to believe that there is any more Ukrainian forces over there. The fighting has not been reported there for a long time, so it's safe to believe that the Russian forces have fully captured everything over in this region, marking a breakthrough in terms of the stalemate over in this western flank of the Kursk front. So this is the frontline change. The total frontline change from Tostilok all the way to the front line is around 5.5 to 5.8 kilometers. From Nizhny Klin is around 1.7 kilometers. So that's the frontline change over in this sector in the Kursk front. The next frontline change, we go all the way to the Kupyansk front, and the Russian incursion crossing the river at Voroshna region continues, with the Russians continue their attack over at Novomlinsk, and they have taken half of Novomlin already, according to the Ukrainian mapping, as well as some improved front line opposite shore of Voroshne. So this front line continues to expand. This is becoming a pretty decent beachhead for the Russians across the Oskil River. So if you zoom in into Novomlinsk, you can see that this is the current region. The Russians have taken the southern part of Novomlinsk, and we shall see how this continue to develop over the next 24-48 hours, because I think the Russians may have already full control over Novomlinsk based on the gray zone that has been marked by the Ukrainian mapping, and of course the previous claim of Russian forces taking this village or town. So after Novomlinsk, we go to Kurakhove. So this is over at the Pishchane front. At the Pishchane front, Russian forces have expanded control at the south of Kurakhove and the north of Zarizove, and this marks the expansion of the control, and they are continue to attack towards Zarizove, south of Kurakhove. So Ukrainian forces continue to hold Senkove, so we shall see how this continues to play out. This is where the river expands, the Oskil River expands into the wider river. So, but it is winter or coming to winter, so this river can freeze. So we shall see how this plays out in the near future. After Kurakhove, the next frontline change, we go to the Kreminna front. Over Kreminna front at Torske, Ukrainian forces has been geolocated in the previously Russian claimed region. This does not change the Ukrainian mapping, because the Ukrainians have always asserted that they have control around this sector. So this actually invalidates Russian claims with Ukrainian forces taking more grounds and straightening, reducing this parallel universe between the two sides. So that's Torske. And the next frontline change after Kreminna is over at the New York front. At the New York front, based on Ukrainian mapping, at Nelipivka, the Russian forces have expanded control based on the Ukrainians over in the southern part of Nelipivka. The most weird part is that there is actually no fighting being reported at Nelipivka. The fighting is all reported at Skibinivka, so which is over here. The Russian and Ukrainian Defense Ministry only mentions Skibinivka. Nelipivka is no longer a thing. However, the Ukrainian mapping by Deep State UA continues to talk about Nelipivka, whereas Ukrainian Defense Ministry talk about Skibinivka. So this is definitely a bunch of, and so that's all from Nelipivka. the next frontline change is over at Petrivka. So over at this south of Pokrovsk, at Pokrovsk front, in the Selidove sector, Russian forces expanding control around this western outskirt or western side of Selidove. So we zoom in a bit. Over in the Petrivka Putinska Zofte region, Russian forces have captured Petrivka with the expansion of the front line. Over in Petrivka, they continue to attack towards Zofte, getting full control of this river or lake in the southeast of Zofte. So, and expanding control along the railway line, and as of course we know that in recent months the Russians love the railway line. And over at Pustinka, the Russian forces have captured the entire eastern half of Pustinka as well. So this entire region, the Russians are definitely fighting all over the place. And if you look at from both sides, the Ukrainians is definitely having the harder battle because the front line for them is much more longer and much more complicated. It's like the logistically is way you just need more troops, whereas the Russian forces, they can reinforce each other, moving left and right, east to west, north to south, much more easily because this is one unit together, while the Ukrainians are actually getting spread out. So, but let's continue to watch how this continue to play out. I think Pustinka is the next to fall because there is already a potential pincer that could develop around Pustinka. So let's continue to watch this play out, and we shall see how this goes. Over in the south of that region, towards Pishchane also have another name called Chumatske, according to the Ukrainians. However, on Google Maps, it's called Pishchane. So the Russian forces have expanded control around Pishchane. However, the interesting thing, this is based on Ukrainian mapping by Deep State UA. However, geolocation shows that the Ukrainian forces is just off Yurievka. So I can only put this as a possible presence. But the Ukrainian mapping already considered this area here to be under Russian control. So this geolocation I have to kind of ignore. This also applies to another sector of the Ukrainian war, where also there is geolocation that seems to be belated versus the latest mapping from the Ukrainian side. So, but geolocation versus Ukrainian mapping in terms of Ukrainian presence, and then they considered Ukrainian grounds. I think usually the Russian side, this Russian advance is more likely to be true. So anyway, this is the Pishchane region. The total length of the front line is around 3 kilometers, so this is pretty big. And the Russians have advanced around 1 kilometer. So that's all from the Pishchane region and the end of the Pokrovsk sector. And as we move into the Kurakhove sector. The Kurakhove sector in the north, around the Voznesenka region, Russian forces have secured the east and the western flank of Voznesenka with expansion of the zone, and with this expansion of the zone southeast of Voznesenka, which means that the Russians have fully captured the western part of Novosilidivka, which means that Novosilidivka is now confirmed to be under Russian control. This is where I meant the geolocation. However, I believe because this is by the Ukrainian mapping most will take precedence over the geolocation, because this geolocation most likely is belated. The Russian forces also have fully secured the western flank, and they continue to expand the control around the railway line. So this front line definitely continues to collapse. And it looks like the Ukraine is not going to be able to defend much longer around this sector, as you can see that the tree lines are not very, very friendly per se around here. So we shall see how these continue to go on, but likely that the Ukrainians is going to lose all this position very, very quickly from this moment on. So the Russians still have not pushed south from Sonsevka towards Stariterne, so that's a surprise. And at Bereski, the Russian forces have taken position on the western part of Bereski. This does not fully necessarily mean that the Bereski is fully under Russian control, despite the pro-Russian sources claim that the Russians has most likely captured the entirety of Bereski. In our mapping, the northern part of Bereski still likely to be under Ukrainian control at this moment. At least we don't have the mapping or the geolocation to prove otherwise. And if you zoom in, this is probably some dacha kind of region, some holiday house kind of place. So that's all. Must be a beautiful place to stay around, I guess, because of the reservoir and whatnot. Over in Kurakhove itself, Ukrainian mapping maps it very interestingly. They say that there is a enclave, the Russian enclave around here after they rushed through and then they got stuck here. However, all this area is largely gray zone according to the Ukrainian mapping, with the Russian firm line to be around here. This is the Russian firm line. And in the latest mapping by Ryba, the pro-Russian source claimed to have expanded control in this industrial zone along the river. So I believe there is a power plant around here. Which is related to this reservoir. So anyway, whatever it is, the Russians are going along the coast of this reservoir, and that is the firm line. The Russian mapping does not acknowledge this, and the geolocation seems to be just a one-off thing. But the Ukrainians do leave this geolocation there and show that there is Russian forces, entrenching themselves in the middle of Kurakhove with no support. But let's see how this play out. So this is based on, I'm going to draw this as the Ukrainian claim because this is fighting against previous geolocation, and so we shall see how this continue to play out over this sector in the Kurakhove itself. So there is a power plant here, right? This is a power plant. I believe this is, I think, a thermal power plant, something like that. So anyway, in Dane, in the north of Dane, the Russian forces have expanded control, capturing huge chunk of this heavy entrenchment that is protecting the south of Kurakhove. And by the look of it, I think the Ukrainian forces will not be able to hold this region as well, just exactly south of Kurakhove. I think the Russians will continue to make short work of all this area here. So the total front line length is around 4.5 kilometers. So it's a pretty long front line around here. So let's see how this goes. The total travel distance is around 1.2 or 1.3 kilometers. And we move into the Uspenivka sector. At the Uspenivka sector, the Russian mapping have dropped some huge frontline changes. They claim that the Russian forces have fully captured Yelizavetivka as well as most of this forest plantation. So the Russian forces in their mapping have advanced greatly. Most likely this is probably accurate because technically there's no way the Ukrainians can defend all this area here. So this likely to be correct, and will continue to signify the continued collapse of the Uspenivka salient, which I believe the Ukrainians would not be able to defend at all. So this is most likely going to be very accurate. In fact, I believe that Ilinka has also fallen. There's no way the Ukrainians going to hold this position. So because the Russians are already putting operational control around Romanivka, the eastern part of Romanivka, so the Ukrainian forces will likely to be continuing their withdrawal. Technically, I don't think they are just routed. I think they are technically withdrawing because there's just no way to hold these positions. So, and this advance is pretty big. It's around 1.5 to 1.6 kilometers, and the total front line is around 5.6 kilometers. So this is a pretty big front line as well, that all these things are collapsing all over the place. So, and then the next frontline change is south of Constantinople or north of Yasna Poliana, with the Russian forces taking a tree line, moving up north. So the tree line is around 2 kilometers. So this is advancing straight for Constantinople. So which is one of the major objectives that the Russians would go for, as I mentioned before, because of the importance of this hub, the road hub around here. This decides the fate of everything in the southern half of the Kurakhove line. So let's see how this goes. And the next frontline change is over at Rozdone. The Russian forces have almost fully captured Rozdone, with more grounds being captured by the Russian forces. This is mapped by Deep State UA. By the look of it, it's around 90% of Rozdone is now under Russian control, and the Russians have also expanded control towards the north, which is basically corroborating the mapping by the Russian side. So because the Russians have already claimed this area, so the Ukrainian mapping is now catching up, and they are matching up very, very well. So that's all from the Rorozon region. And a little bit left. I think the next 2 days we'll probably see the fall of Rorozon. And we go to the western flank of the Velyka Novosilka sector around Rifnopil. Russian forces has been geolocated southwest of Rifnopil, signifying the Russians closing up, and strengthening the front line slowly around this area. And also similarly on the north, in the southeastern part of Rifnopil, the Russians also expanded control in this sector, capturing some entrenchments, and so definitely boosting and buttressing this logistic and control line moving towards Rifnopil. So definitely Rifnopil is more secured with this advance in these sectors. So the distance traveled is probably around 1.5 to 2 kilometers on the southwestern part. In the southeastern part is around slightly smaller to 1.4 to 1.7 kilometers. So and I think that's all the frontline changes. So there is, okay, so let's look at the total area captured. There is so many frontline changes over the past 2 days, and you can see that the Russian forces have the most grounds taken over in the Kursk front. This is due to this concession, or the judgment call that the entire Tostilok all the way to Nizhny Klin region has fallen to the Russians. So that caused the biggest frontline change, despite the Russians have already claimed all these areas here. If you only look at purely just the latest geolocation, the frontline change is merely just almost 3 square kilometers. Then on its own is not that big. So if you don't count in the Kursk front, the biggest would actually be at the Uspenivka sector, followed closely by the Velyka Novosilka sector. So the collapse of the Uspenivka sector definitely with this Russian claim takes the next biggest. And then you have the Velyka Novosilka with this Rorozon region, and then the Rifnopil region, taking a lot of grounds. And Kurakhove follows up next very quickly. And this itself is a lot of grounds all along, from south to the north of Kurakhove to the far north of Kurakhove. Interestingly, so much mapping, and that only leads up to 9.42 square kilometers. Very interesting. So the curvature of the earth just makes it really, really weird, like super weird. Like, yeah, I'm not sure if you can see. Yeah, the points, the distance, widens a little bit. As I measure higher. Whatever it is, not important. No, yeah, that's just technicalities. So the Ukrainians also have their own captures. So I also haven't add up. So let's because I want to count it together. So let's count the Ukrainian one first, because it's a smaller. So 1.39 plus 0.82 plus 0.56. So the total Ukrainian capture or advance over the past 48 hours is 2.77 square kilometers. So I'm going to add here 2.77 square kilometers. And for the Russians, let's count 22.07 plus 0.189. 0.89 plus 1.24 plus 0.12 plus 4.08 plus 9.42 plus 10.8 plus 9.76. And the total capture is 57.66 square kilometers. So let me change 57.66 square kilometers. So this is it seems to be reducing. Previously we have highs like 70 over, 80 over, 100 square kilometers. So now then you have 60. So this is 57 over the course of 48 hours, over 2 days. So definitely the Russian advance, while they're still advancing, is slowing down a bit. Maybe due to that the areas that was collapsed is now already caught up, and they have reached most of the Ukrainian defenses. So but we shall see how this play out. The Ukrainians will likely spring another surprise, which not going to be surprising, but it will be surprising, but surprisingly bad, because Sersky talked about a new counteroffensive, which I'm excited about. So anyway, thank you for watching. Press the like button, subscribe. I'll see you at the situation report, and I'll see you guys in the next update.